This is Tennessee Talks with United States Congressman Tim Burchett.
Hello everybody, I'm Congressman Tim Burchett, and I want to welcome everybody back to another incredible episode of Tennessee Talks, and it just keeps getting better and better. This will be our biggest one so far. And today I'm joined by Major League ball player Lane Thomas, outfielder for the Washington Nationals and co-owner of Knoxville Cabinet Company, which he owns with his sister. Does your sister actually make cabinets?
She does not. It's more of like a, distributorship.
I'm just kidding you, dude. I know that. Anyway, Lane was born and raised in Knoxville and is a Bearden High School alum. Let me ask you something. You went to Bearden High School. Do you know who the captain of the 1982 Bearden High School football team was?
The captain of the 1982 high school? I don't think I do. Who was it?
You're looking at him, big guy.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We went 5-5.
That's good to know.
It was a rebuilding year. You might have heard of me.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. I was slow, but I couldn't catch. Anyway, he committed to the University of Tennessee as a sophomore in high school and was drafted after his senior year by the Toronto Blue Jays organization. It gets kind of cold up here in Canada, doesn't it?
Heck yeah.
And anyway, he played outfield both for the Toronto Blue Jays and the St. Louis Cardinals organizations before he was traded to the Washington Nationals in 2021. And Lane, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, brother. It's a real honor and a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, thank you, brother. Well, tell us your story. You played ball at Bearden High School, and then you went to the major leagues. What kind of drove you to that success? Was your dad a ball player?
He wasn't. I kind of grew up with my dad. He raced, kind of drag race when I was younger. So
really?
Yeah. So I kind of got to watch him, perform in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
Or what?
All of them. He did. I think he started in pro mod and then worked his way up, and he loved pro stock because you kind of had to shift, and it made it a little more interesting for him. So
wouldn't just hit the gas and
exactly. Yeah. It kind of added some detail to it. So yeah, I got to watch him interact with people and interviews and stuff, and I always loved that, but that was a little too adrenaline junkie for me. So
I dig it.
I stuck to the baseball stuff, and it worked out. Yeah, I went to Bearden and. I actually started at Webb.
Right.
And then in 8th grade, he was a real estate developer, and kind of had some struggles. So I ended up going to a public school in Bearden and loved it. Got to play baseball there for 4 years and met some really good coaches and friends. And I think that's a big step, was going through the public school system and meeting a lot of people.
Yeah, we used to play. We used to have football practice out on the baseball field, oddly enough.
Yeah.
And they made a nice field out of that. It's nice. I don't think they practice football anymore on the outfield anymore.
No, they got a nice turf field.
Yeah, they do. Well, let me ask you, what was it like for a young man as yourself? What year were you in the pros? Were you 18?
Yeah, I got drafted in 2014, so
Wow.
Probably a month after I graduated high school.
What was it like trying to build a career in the minor league? I wondered, what were some of your accommodations? I bet that was a little rough, wasn't it?
It was very rough. So I got drafted. I went to our spring training complex in Tampa, or like Dunedin, Florida, which is kind of north of Clearwater Beach. Played there for about a month, and then I got promoted to Bluefield, West Virginia. And I say promoted because it's a higher level, but the accommodations were terrible. We stayed in this place called the Mountain View in Bluefield, West Virginia. I mean, I had an 1.5-inch crack under my door, and at night I would zip myself up in a sleeping bag, just to kind of nothing crawl up in there.
Sounds like when I was in the state legislature, we stayed at the Days Inn Central. I said you get a complimentary breakfast and a complimentary drive-by shooting.
Hey, it was a place that I did not want to stay at. So that was from
when you're in the minors, though, you barely make. I mean, I don't know what, you don't make a whole heck of a lot of money. I mean, you might have a signing bonus, but if you're smart, you'll stow that away, and
sure.
And I know a lot of them don't, but the accommodations are just not.
No, they are. It's gotten a lot better in the last 5-6 years, but I think when I had first signed, I think I was making $250 every 2 weeks, which wouldn't cover, that barely covered the food for the month.
Yeah, I think AC/DC said it best. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Exactly.
That sounds like a very long way up.
But it's in anything, man. I have some buddies that play golf, and I mean, they at least bought us some meals and stuff. Some of those guys working up in golf, they pay their own way, and hope that they score well one week. But
yeah. And that's That's kind of telling, actually. What was going through your mind when you decided to skip college ball and go straight into the
first year? You kind of get drafted in the middle of the minor league season, so I didn't have a full season. But after the first month, I was just like, man, what did I get myself into? Because it's tough, man. You play with a lot of guys who don't speak much English, so it's hard to communicate. And then on top of that, it's like the coaches, I mean, they have a different set of players every 2 months to 6 months. So it's hard to build relationships when you have such a quick time through that certain team or system. So it's tough, man. I met some really good friends because the higher you get, the longer you're with a certain group of guys. But it's hard for sure.
It's hard to get a cohesive kind of thing. You get used to somebody, and then boom, they're gone, either up or down or out.
You grow up really fast.
I'd say
it's a quick turnaround.
I'd say it is. Contract negotiations. People have seen movies like Jerry Maguire and stuff like that, and how those agents work and stuff. How accurate is that? Is that?
I would say, I'd say it's pretty spot on. I don't necessarily, on the player's standpoint, it's not as interactive as, you have an agent who does that stuff for you, but I would say it's pretty spot on. They mention stuff to you, but they kind of know how you should get, paid, and there's so many stats nowadays that there's just a system they plug in and it spits out what number you should get. So you just kind of have to find somebody you trust, and hopefully they do you right, which, luckily I have that.
I remember Peyton told me one time, he said, you don't need an agent, I don't need a best friend.
Yeah, exactly.
You want
doubt.
Somebody that's cutthroat and can get the job done.
No doubt.
What does your batting average have to do to lock down a big time contract? I know you've got a certain scale. If you get one more hit, you move up to this other level, possibly in the negotiations. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think over the last little bit, the batting average hasn't meant as much as it did at one time because they have all these. They call it analytics of baseball, and it's gotten insane to where they know how fast you run, which ball you would or would not have caught. What pitch you hit well, what pitch you don't.
Right.
It's so in detail that they have so many stats. So I would say batting average, along with all this other stuff, is a big factor because it's just consistency. It takes so long to get to free agency. It takes 6 years, so you have to play well for a long time to really make the kind of money these guys are making nowadays.
So somebody literally in the dugout knows how you hit, is telling the coach, and he's motioning to the catcher, and the catcher is putting the you need the deuce or the slider or whatever down on it.
They have the best scouting reports you can have, so it's kind of it's like we're pretty good, but the pitchers are pretty good too, and it's just kind of who makes the first mistake.
Right. I'm pretty sure by the time I got in the congressional baseball game that they had already gone through all their
scouting reports.
Yeah. We were up 9-0, so I think he was just hoping that he could just don't hit me in the head, which they about did. But tell me about professional sports players who go broke. I talk about that a lot, and it always amazes me. But people live paycheck to paycheck at my level, and so I know that and you throw so much money at a young kid. And it's a lot like the legislature or Congress. Somebody who's never been elected, they get there, and all of a sudden, all these people are, they're kissing their butts, and they're throwing stuff at them, and they never understand. I grew up, I went to Bearden like you did, and fortunately, I was around people that had money, so it was never. I've always wanted to be successful, and I'm a capitalist, but it was never the ultimate draw. It wasn't I wasn't the moth to the flame kind of thing, and so but in the pros, these guys get thrown millions of dollars, and they got the women, they got the booze and the drugs and everything thrown at them, and of course the lame investments too. Talk a little bit about your strategy there. I don't get into too much debt. Not detail, not debt. Don't get into too much detail.
Both of those things.
Both those things. Don't ever get into too much debt. But anyway, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think obviously it starts with.
And I know that's not happening to you because I know your background.
Yeah. That's how you said that is the first part of that is that your background. You come from good family. You have some good mentors that talk to you about that stuff before you get caught up in it. But the organizations do a really good job now. There's so much access to technology and educational stuff for, these guys coming over from different countries or people that, maybe don't have as great of parents that, took the money because they needed to. And I think the organizations do a great job with that because, you have meetings about everything. And as much as it stinks listening to it, after the third time you watch it, it soaks in. So, like I said, they do a great job. They teach you how to kind of, like I had to get my own apartment at 19 years old, which a lot of 19-year-olds, they go to campus or college and they don't know.
Mom and dad
so that's something that's big is, you get 3 or 4 guys together and you go and learn all that stuff at a young age. And so it's kind of the experience too. You get to learn, in a bad way or a good way, whether you take it well. So it's good.
All right. And I guess you were put enough aside that when all this is over that you'll move into your next venture, I guess, but you won't be struggling.
Absolutely, yeah, that's the goal for sure.
Absolutely. Oh, what do you do in the off season? Your time that you're out. What do you do to get you work out at a regular basis? I assume. I mean, you're a world-class athlete. You'd have to. With me, my ability was mostly God-given, so I could just lay out and then immediately go into the third string position.
Pick right back up.
Boom, like that. So, what is your training like? You have to watch what you eat. Do you run? You work out? You work out locally in a gym, or what do you do?
Yeah, so I usually right when I get home after the season. I usually take, a week, 10 days and just really enjoy family and catch up with friends and, have a beer or two and eat some good food. And then
right on.
I try to get back into it pretty quick and move around because it's, you lose a lot of ability quick if you don't keep doing it. So I try to start moving around again. It's really just about rest in your head because, your body, you can bounce back pretty quick if you get back into it. But the mental side of it is, you've been doing the same thing for 6 straight months. Half the time during the season, I don't even know what day it is.
Yeah, so just get on a bus, get on a plane.
Exactly, yeah. I'm sure it kind of gets like that for you too at some days. It's so repetitive that you just got to find a way to get back into a groove of things in the off season.
Absolutely. I sleep in my office. I shower downstairs in the gym, and I ask before every day I'm in the gym, I say, what day is this? Because I know either on Thursday or Friday I'm going home.
Yeah.
So I know to grab my bag and start loading it up so I can go home. So you kind of get in that repetitive nature. And I can't imagine how it'd be just town to town to town.
No doubt.
And motel living is not glamorous, and it stinks, really.
No doubt.
I did that when I was in the legislature. The only good thing about it when I was in the legislature was you had the same. They'd reserve the same room for you.
Yeah.
So you had that was a nice
comfortability
thing.
of going back to it. Yeah.
But
cool.
But I couldn't imagine going in other towns and the groupies and the pitfalls there would just be and probably a lot of times what do? You get off the bus. You get off the bus, get on the plane, fly, get there, go to the ball field. There's really no downtime at all. It's
occasionally we'll have a day off that gets mixed in. We'll try to go out as a team and eat dinner and stuff. But a lot of guys are married and have kids or about to be at that point. So that a lot of the families travel on some of the fun trips, which makes it cool because everybody's pretty close. So it makes it pretty enjoyable.
Right on.
But as far as when I'm home, the workout and baseball side of things, Coach Vitello at Tennessee is pretty cool about letting us use the facility as much, and I think he likes having us around and kind of hang out with some of these guys. So
I'm sure it's a good inspiration for them. It gives them a shot at looking at, hey, maybe I got a shot at this.
Yeah, absolutely. That it's they have the opportunity to do exactly what we do, and it's closer than they think, for sure.
I know when I go places, they think, dadgum, if Tim Burchett could be a United States Congressman, dadgum, I can do it. I could be anything.
That's the cool part, though.
Yeah, don't set your sights so low to be a congressman. Do something meaningful with your life. Well, here's the part I hate about this show that my guests usually like the most. You get to ask me anything you want. And then I'll choose to answer it if I want to or edit it out. So, do you have any questions to me, Lane?
Yeah, I think I guess just kind of compare it to what we just talked about. Like go through what your routine is like on a daily basis, and how you deal with how repetitive it gets, and how you work in family time and all that.
Yeah, my schedule is pretty laid out, and I always say my dance card. People call me, they'll say, "Hey, can you come to this thing tomorrow?" And I go, "Dude, you should have called me about two weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, because I get the schedule fills up pretty fast." But when I'm in D.C. though, it's pretty much nonstop. I get up when we have baseball season. I get up, believe it or not, at 4:30 in the morning, because I catch the van out to the baseball park because it starts at 6, and we are at the park. It's that your club actually bought. It's like an inner city type situation where we get to set up. They had to move us into that because there was a shooting a few years back at one of them.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and a bunch of guys got shot up, so it's more secure. Yeah. And literally, I mean, you get out there and your third base coach is carrying an AR. Literally,
oh my gosh.
The third base guys they line up this. It's pretty amazing actually.
Heck yeah.
And they're not going to allow that to happen again. And so we. But during regular out of baseball season, I get up at about 6 every morning. I go down to the gym. There we got this boot camp, and I'm the oldest guy in the boot camp. And they'd beat the hell out of me. It's like I told somebody, just lay on the mat like a slug after. They go, "Burchett, you okay?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm all right."
Yeah, I'm good.
And then meetings start at about 8. There's usually a couple days a week. There's a breakfast meeting. On Thursday we have this. Bipartisan prayer group I go to, and on Wednesday mornings I have another group I go to, and then we'll have what we call conference meeting, which is our caucus. We'll meet one day a week for about an hour, and we go through all the bills that are coming up and things that are happening, and then we have committee meetings. I serve on the Transportation and Foreign Affairs Committee, and they have subcommittees of those committees, and a lot of times they'll put 2, maybe 3 meetings at the same time. They couldn't organize a one-car funeral. And
so a lot of those meetings and stuff are like voting on legislation and stuff that's trying to get through. Okay.
Trying to get through. And then, of course, it goes to the floor, and you see the debate on the floor, which is all staged. It's bogus. You're not allowed. Speaker Pelosi, when she first thing they did was suspend the rules, so we're not allowed to amend anything on the floor, which is unfortunate. I hope one day we get back to actually having real debate,
like an open conversation about all that stuff.
Because by the time it gets to the floor, they've already cut the deal, and that's the shady thing about politics. And and then you got. And the part I hate most about it is the fundraising. You have to raise money
for sure,
and it's that's why, and you have to, and it's the spoken secret that both parties, you have to raise so much for the caucus to move up in seniority, and I probably will never move up because I never raise enough money and I don't kiss enough butt, and that is unfortunate. But I always say, if Peyton Manning was in the Congress, he'd still be waiting to get in, because they don't. It's a really antiquated system, but money is what drives it. And so, and then we'll vote on issues, bills on the floor, and then, and it just goes back and forth. And they'll say, we'll do a 15-minute vote, and everybody, 435 Congress people have to come in, and so it's just it gets ridiculous.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts, and and on Thursdays and Fridays are fly-out days. And they'll always schedule something towards the end, so they'll be everybody just wants to get it over with and vote on it. And it's usually something major, and it shouldn't be. They should put that on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. But I understand they want to win. So, and that's part of it, and that's why it's some days you leave pretty depressed. But I don't live in D.C. I love coming home. There's nothing like East Tennessee.
No,
I can have a terrible day. I can have a greatest day of my life in Washington, but when I get home, it's still home, and I love it.
I'll tell you what, that's something we probably have in common, is you don't. Not that I didn't appreciate the place already, but spending half the year away makes you really miss the mountains and the trees and
you travel much out of this country too. You go to the Middle East, and you're just like, wow, As there's bombed out cars and people getting blown up and knifed and everything. And
we've got it pretty good over here.
We've got it pretty good. Yep, we do. But anyway, hey, buddy, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a real pleasure,
I
dude.
appreciate you having me.
It's good to see a fellow Bulldog do well, and you make Knoxville and the whole state of Tennessee proud. I know you know that. And
I appreciate that.
Even Andy Venables says good things about you. That's worth anything.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, I'm Congressman Tim Burchett, and I'm really honored today to have a really special guest, and it's been great. And I want to thank y'all for listening and watching this episode of Tennessee Talks, and thank y'all for sending me here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Tennessee Talks. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Keep up with Congressman Burchett by following Rep. Tim Burchett on Twitter and Instagram, and Congressman Tim Burchett on Facebook and YouTube.